Hello and welcome to All for United, the last words. I do have a panel with me. I've just got them in the background for the minute. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm your host again, Stu Woolley, just dishevelled from footy and stepping in for Callum once again. So I'm just going to bring everybody in and we're just going to delve straight into today's game. Let us know in your comments your thoughts. Let us know if you're disappointed, you're happy. Let you know, as Anton will explain from his viewpoint, how expensive today's result can be. So I'm going to bring everyone in and then we'll go live properly. Guys, how are we?
I'm good. Thank you very much. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Dan, you okay, mate? You're on mute, dude.
Yeah, I'm perfect. Thank you.
Good lad. Good lad. John, you all right, mate?
Yeah, man. All good. Apart from the result, but all good, man.
Yeah, it's not the best, was it? And John, you okay, fella?
Yeah, not too bad. I actually went to a very good game.
You've had a win today, haven't you?
Today, so thankfully I missed the worst game. Yeah, no, feeling good though.
Well, look, let's jump into it. My viewpoint on it is very, very straightforward. Me and Mr. Ton and John and Anton have discussed the fact that we don't control games of football. And we've had sporadic times during matches where we have controlled it, but mostly we don't control it. And I think what was open to me and certainly opened my eyes today is our lack of use of the football when we've got it. Today was a drastic example of how not to play football, which is surprising when we're supposed to be dealing with elite footballers. But Dan, anyway, let's have your overview of the game and then just straight around, lads, please. Get involved if you want to get involved, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. So, firstly, I want to talk about how I personally thought that we'd struggle against Newcastle. I said it would be 1-1, so I was predicting a draw anyway. But it doesn't mean I wasn't disappointed in the slightest, because obviously it still hurts me to see Manchester United still perform really poorly. So it was a game that obviously I knew we'd struggle in, but obviously still want us to get the win, but I still predicted a draw. I just think that right now United players can't play against a low block. So we struggled against Ammonia on Thursday. We struggled against today. So I think when we're going against teams that are going to play a deep line, United really struggle.
Yeah. Oh, what is it you think about the low block? Why is it? I mean, I've spoken loads of times about how to drag a low block away. You know, you need to sometimes concede possession to gain possession. Sounds very, very stupid, but you need to be able to draw these guys out. It's called possession concession, believe it or not. And you have to do that. And why do you think we don't do that? What is it about our team that can't identify that during a match?
I think it's just down to confidence, to be honest, because like you said before, that United, again, aren't very good on the ball, as it seems like we struggle to actually use the football. And it's, like I said, it's very frustrating, and it's the simplest things that can actually cost us. So it's like, I think a lot of United players need to simplify their game, need to work on themselves, look in the mirror and blame themselves for their lack of performances. And that's where development comes in and coaching. But to me right now, players like Bruno Fernandes, I'd say mainly Bruno Fernandes. I think that when it comes to creativity, he can't defend well enough, or he can't attack well enough to play players in when there's like 10 players in their box, if that makes sense. So when like Newcastle are dropping all the way back, then Bruno can't pick off a pass, unless it's a 50-yard Hollywood pass. He actually can't do it, I don't think, when it comes to short passes, because the stats are compared. Video's going to go out tomorrow on my YouTube channel comparing Bruno Fernandes to other Premier League playmakers. And when it comes to short passing, Bruno just is very low in the stats when it comes to like James Maddison, Ødegaard and stuff like that. And it's just, I want the Bruno back from 18 months ago where we were comparing him with Kevin De Bruyne, to be honest. But I just don't know where he's gone.
Yeah. No, well, I agree. Anton, good to have you again, mate. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, give us your thoughts on it, really, an overview, and perhaps you can add to what Dan was saying about Bruno. I don't know if you've noticed that as well over the past few months.
There's a couple of things to say on today's match. I agree with Dan. I knew we were going to struggle. Newcastle were playing very well this season, and they have, I'd say, a solid midfield at the very least. Obviously, Christian Eriksen, I don't think he was playing today because I think he missed a game through illness. But when you just have Bruno Fernandes on the pitch as the only creative midfielder, it's not going to work for him. I think today highlighted the importance that Christian Eriksen has in his team already. Obviously, we brought him in. We didn't expect him to be playing the specific position he's playing. That was meant for Frenkie de Jong. But Christian Eriksen really has been one of the main reasons we've actually won as many games as we have this season. And one thing that annoys me a lot about this team, I say it's more of less of an annoyance, but more of a concern. We don't score enough goals. We can have all the XG in the world. I don't really care about XG that much. I see the stuff on Twitter. It doesn't make sense to me. Like goalkeeper XG is rubbish. Attacking XG is rubbish. We just don't score enough goals, and it's just plain and simple. We're winning games by 1 goal. We're scoring 1 or 2 goals. I'm watching City and Arsenal and Chelsea, any other team, score 4 or 5 goals multiple times in a month. And when we do it, it's like the best thing ever because it never, ever happens. And we get to and about the low block as well. I needed to talk about that. I think it's a mixture of things. Dan's right. I think it's confidence, but I also think that there's just too many players in the team that don't know what to do. You can tell that Erik ten Hag is improving the way we attack and the way we pass around the box. But the way I've seen it is maybe 18 months ago, we'd be playing those passes in and around the box, maybe 5 or 10 yards deeper. We're getting closer. We're getting closer to the goal. But when it comes to that final pass, the players aren't fast enough, not in terms of running across the ground, but receiving the ball and playing it quickly. Because when you play against a low block, it has to be quick passing because you've got to draw players out. And then when the space is created, someone goes in that space or the ball goes in that space. But we just don't capitalize because we're too slow. I was watching I don't know whose podcast it was. It was either Mark Goldbridge or Ben Foster, but they had Troy Deeney on it and they were speaking about Fred. And they said he is the trigger, not because he's rubbish, not because it's not even that he has a bad touch. It's just because he doesn't play one-touch football. And one-touch football in this team around the box is what you need. And it's unfortunate that Eriksen wasn't there today because I think if he was playing, we might have been able to create a couple more chances. But when you have Fred on the ball in and around the area to try and pick that second to last pass or last pass on 2, 3 or 4 touches, it's just not going to work. Casemiro, on the other hand, I think is very good. He's able to play 1 or 2 touch football. Graham Souness says he's never been a great central defensive midfielder because of the players he's had around him. But I think maybe he just doesn't know what his game is. He's not going to come in and dribble past 11 players. He's going to come in and do what he does, 1 or 2 touch football, break up the play, clean players out. He's going to give a lot of fouls away, but I don't really care. But yeah, Eriksen was a big miss. Fred really isn't up to standard. Bruno Fernandes, I don't think has improved since we've got him. It's just the style of play that Manchester United have adopted has changed, and he's just not able to adapt with it. Sociable was perfect for him, and it's still he's still a good footballer. Like we can't say he's rubbish because he's not. It's Bruno Fernandes. He's got a very high output. But I think in this specific team, he's not going to last that long. Like he'll still be in and around the team, starting matches. But I think maybe in a season and a half, you're going to see a player like Frenkie de Jong come in, a player like Christian Eriksen move into Bruno's position, and Bruno come in for impact or come in for the cup games. I think there's a lot of problems still in this team. Not to talk about the fullback situation on the right-hand side, but maybe that's for later. But, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, I think we all do. Welcome again, Mr. Ton, regular on a Sunday night with me. Good to have you. We spoke in the off-season, if you remember, which I know you do. We spoke in the off-season, and I made a point about the necessity of Ronaldo, and I didn't see a way how we could spread the goals around, which you quite rightly pointed out Erik ten Hag likes to in his system. Ronaldo's not doing it either. It obviously gives your opinion of the game, and then try and sum up, if you can, on why we have a lack of goals and why we're not converting the chances that we're making.
Do you know what it is? It comes a lot of what Dan and Anton just spoke was a lot of things that I've said on the channel and Stu, me and you discussed previously. So it doesn't surprise me, a lot of the points that the boys brought up. I said it then under Ralph, that this is an experiment for me, a test. And I could see that someone like a Bruno is not a system player. And I said it at the time. He's not a bad
You
player.
did.
He
You
needs to
did.
play in the transition. You can see it under Ralph. When Ralph tried to implement his system, Bruno was struggling. I knew Ten Hag's system very well. And I knew Bruno, someone like Bruno won't thrive in it, won't get the numbers that he got before. That's why he's got 1 goal, 1 assist so far. He won't thrive in it. He won't look like the player he looked like then. That on the transition is brilliant. He just won't. Yes, we missed Eriksen today. You could see it. Even though I would say he defensively, sometimes he's a liability, but you missed his playmaking from deep today. It was clear to see. I wouldn't put the whole 90 minutes down to Fred because there's 11 players on the pitch. But yes, Fred's not the best player in that position. And I think Anton brought up a point. It was Trey Dean, and it was about his first touch. About they use his first touch is terrible, so he used that as a press trigger. There was so much issues wrong today. It's like what Anton said, and I said it last season. As a team, in the last, I don't know how many years it's been now, we don't create clear-cut opportunities or one-on-one opportunities with the opposition. That's now down, and I said it at the time, last season, that's because of the personnel and the sort of players we have. When you have sort of players, some you can call them tiki-taka players, some people call them triangle players, whatever you want. Players that open up space, that can pass into another space. Like, for example, I don't want to pick them up, but if you watch Arsenal the other day, they will pass to their midfielder, and when their midfielder receives the ball, he's in acres of space. Do you understand? There's a big difference in what they do, and when you have certain players with a certain intelligence and the way they think and see football, it creates opportunities. So if you watch someone like Anton said, De Jong, everything he does in every game. He doesn't play differently. Do you understand? He's there's certain intangibles. Someone like a Fabregas plays the same. Someone like a Modric plays the same. These sort of players, they see football a certain way. When you have them in your team, it helps and it goes a long way. People can get onto Anthony. I said I've described his game perfect on the channel before, and that's his game. But the differences between Anthony now and Ajax is where he's receiving the ball and his support around him. That's very important. So where he's receiving the ball a lot of the times in Ajax is in the final third, and he's not having to do as much running. Second of all, his support network, as in the players that he's playing 1-2s off. Mazarawi's either doing an underlap or an overlap. Berghaus is coming across as a decoy, also being like an option as a right winger for him if he wants to pass to. We don't have that, and that's not our Anthony fault. That's a manager tactics, and he's gambling on the way that he coaches for these players to catch on to his tactics and the way he's trying to coach and implement his system. So, but I do think he's got to tweak certain things because the players, whether we like it or not, they're not as intelligent as other players are to take on so much information and to do certain things. And some players, unfortunately, just not system players. So when you're giving them so much information to do this and you're trying to make them like robots, that's just not. Even Bruno said it in his interview with Athletic. And I said this before even this interview. I said it last season. Ten Hag is a video man. We'll do videos with the players one-on-one as well. That's exactly what Bruno said. So imagine this information he's giving them and trying to make them like robots. It's just a lot to, and you can see it. We don't attack with conviction. And I said this after the last Premier League game, is that my concern going into Newcastle. And if I'm honest, we should have beat Newcastle today. They had a couple injuries. We should have beat them. The opportunity was there. Someone I spoke to was at the game today and even said that we was winning the midfield battle, like man to man, really and truly. But it's like we couldn't do nothing with the ball once we won the battles. We couldn't do nothing.
Yeah,
that's a problem. Once we won the ball, there was no ideas, no imagination, nothing. And the one thing that he said to me, sorry, is that
that's all right.
We don't have enough people in the team and in the pitch, and it's a very good point. But when he brought up, and you could see it when he was at the stadium today, is that you don't have enough people that can take the ball from midfield and take on a man or drive. That's the problem. Yeah. Like we don't have no one, not just in midfield, but in the team. Where if you look at the top teams, they have multiple players that can take the ball and drive with it, take it down the field.
Well, I want to get on a bit later to football intelligence. Anyway, I talk about it a lot, as you well know, so I do want to touch on that. John, welcome again, mate. Good to have you last week, and thanks again for joining us today. First and foremost, give us your thoughts on the game, and secondly, can you make a case for Bruno? Because Jarvis is in the comments as always. Hi, Jarvis. Good to see you. Talking quite positively about his performance today. So, yeah, what are your thoughts, pal?
Yeah, so thank you for having me on. So yeah, basically, I mean, I went to women's games. Unfortunately, I didn't watch the men's game. I listened to the radio. So, but I listened to it throughout, and it was also from an opinion. Yeah, I think it was interesting, the midfield battle. I think Newcastle were probably slightly better in the first half. I think we were a bit better in the second half, and I think we cancelled each other out. As for Bruno, I know, Dan, you were on, I think it was preview for the Everton game, and you had Fred on, and I can't remember the other guy's name who mentioned about what Bruno's doing. I don't think Bruno's necessarily having a bad season, but I think we did miss a player like Eriksen today, and I think this was Bruno's opportunity to do something in his absence, do something to win that game for us. Do I think he had a bad game? No, I don't think he had a bad game, but I don't think he had a great game either. So for me, I've been saying for a while, I think he might benefit from being dropped for a game in terms of that, not because he's playing badly, but when you think of the old days under Fergie, even Matt Busby, for example, when Matt Busby used to drop a player, he used to get him in his manager's office and say, "How do you think you're playing?" He's like, "I'm thinking, doing okay, boss." And he'd say, "You're right, but can you do better?" "Yes, boss." And he'd drop him for the next game. I think something like that for Bruno might be helpful in the long term. Personally, obviously, hopefully, Eriksen might be back for the Tottenham game. Hopefully, he'll feel better next couple of days and that. I also think Fred, he obviously missed that great chance. And you looked at, I was at the game on Thursday, for example, and obviously McTominay was suspended today, and you look at the way McTominay took that goal to win us the game on Thursday night, for example, and you're just like, if you give McTominay that chance at Fred, when Rashford rounded the keeper and that, I'd have confidence McTominay can score that goal, personally.
He was offside anyway, though, wasn't there? Rashford was offside when he made the run.
All right, I see. I didn't know that, but even so, it's that confidence that, and I think unfortunately Fred is. I saw him on Thursday night. I just don't think he's up to, and I think obviously we put a tweet out a few hours ago, and Fred. The question is he going down the pecking order? I think unfortunately he might be, because Eriksen was missing today. McTominay was suspended. That was his opportunity. If he gets the winning goal, albeit I don't know if it was offside and that, but that will give him confidence. But he didn't take, and he didn't take on Thursday. And I think the midfield is a big issue. And I also think when you look at the midfield battle, listening on the radio, Joel Linton had a good game for Newcastle today. In the battle of the Brunos, Bruno Guimaraes outshone Bruno today, and I think it's a big issue that we need to sort out going forward. And obviously, we'll go into the lack of clinicalism in front of goal, but it's a big issue for us. And unfortunately, all Ten Hag could do if he was to change midfield was to bring on a youngster to potentially, and that's never a good situation if you want to win the game.
I just want to say something to you before we go. This is just something that someone said today, and one of my mates. It was a good point, and I was like, I don't want to hear after this game, "Oh, Bruno worked hard. Bruno this worked hard, worked his socks off, all of this." If that's the case, play him as defensive mid or centre mid. Your number 10 ain't just supposed to be working hard. I don't want to hear that. And it's a good point. He was like, when do people tell me about his passing? I mean, look at like how we used to speak about Carrick. Did you see that pass? Did you see that pass at Scholes? Like, did you see that pass? And it's a good point. And we had a conversation. Should he have went in a centre mid position today when Fred was having a bad game and then put someone else as a 10? Because then his energy and the work rate, what he was doing today, might have been more helpful in centre mid than it is where playing further up behind Ronaldo, if that makes sense. And it was a good conversation because it was, do you know what I mean? It's a good, I've said it a couple of times. I would prefer Bruno personally as a centre mid. That's just my opinion right now, currently especially.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, look, I wouldn't disagree with that. But you've got to look at whenever you position a footballer on the pitch, you've got to see where he's going to be most effective, most dangerous. You know, where's he going to disrupt the opposition? Where's he going to be able to hurt the opposition? You know, can he step in and defend just at the right time? And can he push out equally at the right time and get us on the front foot? And you know, a deep line Bruno, I think can take the ball off Casemiro and do something with it, and then push Eriksen to his to his more natural position as a 10. Guys, you've all spoken eloquently as you always do. Great knowledge again of the game, but you all mentioned the word confidence. Every single one of you has mentioned the word confidence. Anton, I'll start with you because you brought it up first. I know what you're saying, but my opinion of a footballer is that he's got to play himself back into form. He's got to be the one that works harder than everyone else to get himself back into form. Just elaborate what you think and why you think our players are lacking confidence, and should they lack confidence, or should they have the ability to like shrug it off and go again?
Listen, I'm gonna try and say this in a way which doesn't make me sound sympathetic to a footballer. They're footballers, but you're playing for Manchester United. Someone like Rashford or Sancho, for example. I know the type of player that Sancho is. Watching him at Dortmund, if anybody watched Sancho at Dortmund, he has the ability to beat 2 or 3 players with ease and then pick the right pass, which he did more often than not. But now we see glimpses of that. I was watching the game with my friend today. Sancho literally sprinted for a ball. Now I said I haven't seen Sancho sprint in absolutely ages. I don't actually know how fast he is because I haven't seen him sprint for so long. But then when he gets closer to the goal, what I think goes on in his head is he knows everyone's watching. He knows he's being watched by millions of people. I think footballers focus a lot on social media and the response that goes on there. I think they're a bit scared. They're a bit like what I noticed that Manchester United wingers do, especially the wingers, Anthony, whoever's playing on the wing. They will happily drive at a man. If they can't see the easiest path passing, they'll stop, cut back and pass it back. I think that is because if they get tackled, they're gonna get clowned on Twitter, and then they have to go on their phone and see all the abuse, even though they haven't really done anything wrong. They have to deal with all of that. So I think they just stick to the really, really simple stuff, which is why, again, we don't see chances being created at will compared to other teams. We don't see many goals being scored. We don't see many players just doing a step over or even anything. Like, it's really, I think Manchester United are quite boring to watch, and I don't like saying that because I support the club, but I think we're boring to watch, and I think it goes down to the players overthinking what they do, and they're scared of the backlash they're going to get if they don't do something right. I think to be more confident, you have to just really just focus on yourself and know what you can do. Because obviously we've got players. We're not going to spend 70-something million on Sancho. We're not going to spend that money on Anthony or Fernandes or anybody else if they can't deliver, if they're not doing stuff, if they didn't prove themselves at the previous club. So we have players that are good. We just need to find a way to get them like genuinely just believe in themselves. And I know it's not as simple as that, but if you just believe in yourself and believe that you can beat the right back and be closer to the goal with one less person to beat, then I think we'll be on to better things. But
don't you put some of that down to the manager and his system, though?
No, because the manager's system doesn't prevent a player from beating someone. Like you're not going to be one-on-one with the defender and think,
but the manager might have strict rules, and Stu will know, because I mentioned it about Anthony before he even joined us, that his game is very repetitive, and what he's doing now is very strict on how the manager is put in his brain to do. So when you don't see him beating a man because the manager has drilled into him, either pass back, look for the underlap if it's not there, overlap, or recycle the ball. I'm being serious. That's the manager.
Yeah.
That's and the manager actually spoke about this the other day, and when he got asked about players beating their man, and he even spoke about Sancho and Anthony, and he said the team has to help them out to put them in one-on-one situations. The team has to support them, and the overloads creates that. This is what I'm trying to say. It's not just the player, and I actually have spoke about this before. If you look at the top wingers in world football, and also where they're receiving the ball, when Sancho came on the other day. And he had that little, when he created for Scott McTominay, and you look at that moment, that spell when he came on, look at every time he received the ball, it was 9 times out of 10 in the opposition's box. And that's why he was doing these little things. Other than that, he's receiving the ball on the halfway line.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're not beating a man from there. If you look at, like I said, if you look at the top wingers in world football, they're receiving the ball in the final third all the time. Anthony at Ajax was always receiving the ball in the final third. Now he's having to do a lot more up, and it's a big difference right now. This is what I'm saying. A lot of it is also down to the manager and also the support network with the players. It's not just that's what I'm trying to say. If you look Dortmund, I watch Sancho. If you look at him and where he's getting the ball and where he's beating the man, it's in the final third. There's only 1 or 2 times on transition he's beaten a man, but 9 times out of 10 it's in the final third, bro.
Yeah, look, but both great points. You both make great points, and I want to bring Dan in now because. And John and Mr. Ton will have a bit of a laugh here because I have a phrase, Dan, which you may or may not have heard, and that is sometimes in football matches you've got to go rogue, and you have got to go rogue. And it comes down to what Mr. Tom was saying and exactly what Anton was saying. They're both speaking about the same thing, about Sancho's blessed with ability, but he's not doing it at the minute. And why isn't he doing it? And if you are being instructed not to, when I've done it myself, I've been in matches and the gaffer's told me to, be here or whatever, and I'm saying, I don't agree with you, mate, and I'm going to go and do what I want to do to try and affect the game of football. Is there an element to say that confidence comes with selfishness, during football, and that Sancho should be saying to himself, you know what, I understand what the gaffer's saying, but I can tell you because I can see that if I was to get round X, Y, and Z, I can create 3 or 4 more chances per week. What's your thoughts on that?
With Sancho, I mean, I watched him a little bit at Dortmund, and I didn't watch him all through his entire season, but I watched clips of him and some games. But with Sancho, I personally think he's better as a right winger. But personally, strictly speaking, I know he had his better seasons in the middle or on the left wing where he'd score goals, but I still think that Sancho can't play as a getting behind type winger. I don't think he's quick enough. And I think with the pace that's up that is of the Premier League, so like you see so many fullbacks now who are absolutely rapid, and I feel like Sancho isn't a Rashford or an Anthony where he can beat a fullback for pace. So I feel like that's where Sancho does struggle out on the wing, and that's why I personally would move him into the middle where he can link up the play, he can be a lot more confident on the ball, and he can make them further outward balls to maybe help out the team better. Like, I don't know, I'd personally put like Martial when he's fit back on the left, Ronaldo in the middle, Anthony on the right, and then have Sancho in the middle, because I think that Bruno Fernandes is, like Mr. Ton said, a number 8. I don't think he's good. I don't think he's the right type of player to be playing a 10 because he runs around too much. And if you want to play that runs around a lot, you might as well just put him in the centre midfield in the number 8 position.
So really good points. I'll bring John in on this one then. So what we're all saying, if I'm reading this correctly, we've got way too many 10s in our first team squad than than wingers. So we got people playing out of position. We got Sancho playing out of position. We got Bruno playing out of position. We got Eriksen playing out of position. We don't know what to do with McTominay, from week to week. We don't know what to do with Fred from week to week. The only person or players that are actually playing in their chosen position is Casemiro and Ronaldo, because both Martial and Rashford have come out and said their preferred position is through the middle as a 9. So is that something to do with, John, just your opinion? And then guys, feel free to come in.
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm going with that? Is that something, a big area that we got a massive problem with? Or is that too easy to point that particular finger?
I think it depends. I do think that we are overstocked in certain areas. We're trying to fit players in, and but there are also, like you mentioned, there are maybe some players playing out of position. So, for example, you touched upon Casemiro's playing in his right position. We've spoken about playing Eriksen Bruno. Okay, it didn't happen today, but there's a lack of balance in that midfield. I personally would like to see Casemiro play with someone like McTominay, maybe Eriksen further up potentially, just to see how it goes. Because I think Eriksen is obviously he's been playing alongside Casemiro and that, and I personally don't necessarily think that's his best position. I think he's done reasonably well there, but you saw with the City game a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't. He's not always suited to that, and at times we have that lack of balance in the midfield. Just to touch upon the confidence thing, loads of people said it was a mistake. Ten Hag taking Ronaldo, he would have scored Rashford's goal. Well, the chance Rashford had again, yeah. But he's not the only person capable of scoring that goal in our team. We have so many quality players in our team. And what Ten Hag needs to work out is how do you get the best out of all of them? You got to play them in the right position. Dan touched on Sancho's best position is on the right wing. Well, that's Hansen's best position, isn't it? And this is, I personally think you got to make a decision whether you play Rashford or Sancho on the right wing and play Ronaldo and maybe Martial up top. I think that's what suits us best. But my big issue with the confidence, who was the player who was going to take, and you were talking about being rogue, Stu, who's the player who's going to take that Kate Mouse scruff of the neck and say, I'm going to win us this game? And that was the big issue.
Well, when you would look at it, that's a good point, John, because when you would look at it, the guy that would take the game by the scruff of the neck was Bruno 18 months ago. He was the one that look at what the game is. He would grab hold of the game, strangle the fucking life out of it, get us moving. And we don't have that with him anymore. We haven't got that type of player. And as well as Dan, and you're absolutely right. And I've got to,
dare I say it, Stu, Rashford was doing it previously as well.
He was indeed, but the reason why Bruno, Rashford, and Martial were working so well together is they attacked the diagonals brilliantly, but they attacked as a three as well. They attacked almost as very reminiscent to the way that Liverpool attacked with them, with Salah, Firmino, or Jota and Mane. They would be so fluid across the front three. We're not that fluid anymore. We
never were.
We never were. We've always been kind of stuck in our ways, but we have the players that enable us to be fluid across the front three. Whether you've got a straight centre forward, which I quite like, a direct number 9, and then a fluid 3 behind him. So you're not stuck out to the left, you're not stuck out to the right, you're not stuck in the middle. But if you play that way, you've got to make sure your 2 in midfield, your 6 and your 8 are solid. Okay. And that's the only reason, as much as I agree with you, Dan, about Sancho playing as a 10, I think our most effective 10 would be Eriksen. But I do agree that Sancho should come back and play as an 8.
You only have to look at Eriksen when he was at Tottenham. Where was his most effective position? He was in his prime then, and he's now 31. It's not
right. You just compare him to Brentford last season. He played as a 10 then.
Sorry.
That's about Bruno playing. Eriksen played as a 10 for Brentford last season. So if you want to go more recent form, then obviously last season.
And this is why I think the way Casemiro's playing, Casemiro and Fred play for Brazil. Well, Fred's not.
Fred's not Brazilian.
The last couple of games, I would like to see Casemiro. We need more balance in midfield. I would like to see Casemiro play alongside McTominay, even if it's just for a couple of games, just to see. Because Casemiro's the type of player, other players can learn from him. The way he plays the game. And I personally think someone like McTominay might get more out of him if you play him alongside Casemiro, because he's one of the best midfielders in Europe now, has been for the last decade or so, or whatever, 6-7 years.
If we do that, though, then Eriksen gets benched, because right now, I think we can all agree, Anton, I'll get your thoughts on this, pal, but right now I think we can all agree he's not going to drop Bruno. Once you've taken Maguire out of the equation,
it seems like the system's suited to play to Bruno's strengths, it seems, but Bruno just isn't playing it as his strengths. That's just the way I look at it.
I think you're right. Anton, what's your thoughts, mate?
I agree as well. He's not going to drop Bruno. Look, Bruno's still a good player. He still contributes here and he still does contribute. We don't want anybody to get misconstrued. He's still a very good player. But I think on that pitch, any team needs he's not the club captain, but he's my captain. He's the person I want to lead Manchester United out every match. I think you need to have somebody like that on the pitch. People say that he complains, he does all of this and that, he's always whining. I'd rather that than every time the camera pan to him, he's just mute. He's not doing anything. I'd rather he's got his mouth open. I'd rather he's shouting at the ref or shouting at someone, just doing something to try and get the team over the line, whether or not he's having the best game of his career. If he's still able to lift other people up and get other people making those passes more accurately or speeding the game up, then I think he fully deserves to start, because you never know. He can get the ball from 30 yards out and put it in the top corner. Like, he can do that. McTominay can't do that. Fred can't do that. Casemiro, I've seen do it once or twice maybe, but you need someone there. Eriksen, of course, can do it, but he's not playing in the same position. I think what I wanted to say a couple of minutes ago is I am so bored, though, of talking of McTominay and Fred. At the end of the day, it all does go back to the fact that we're so useless when it comes to recruiting properly and helping ourselves avoid these situations. Because if we had the correct recruitment, we wouldn't be sitting here today talking about a 0-0 against Newcastle when we still don't know what the best midfielders, and we still don't know why people are playing here and people are playing there. It will just make such a difference. But I did want to ask as well, do you think a result like this changes what we might be doing in January? Because maybe I'd say a week into the season or something, there was a report that we had 70 million for January. And then about a month later, it was, we're not going to do anything. And then we started messing up and it was, we might be doing something, we're getting linked. Do you think a result like this is just going to, well, in my opinion, I think a result like this means we have to be signing someone in January. Depay would have been perfect for something like today. It's just frustrating. I get annoyed, and I don't really want to speak about McTominay and Fred because I don't think they should be playing for us. It's just a difficult one, because I don't know which one of you said it, but we do well to get the ball back. Fred, they run around a lot, they put in the industrious work, they hassle players, but I said it a few weeks ago to my friend, and I think on here, it doesn't matter how hard you work to get the ball back. If you're just going to pass it out anyway, you might as well just let the other team have it and just sit off and find another way to break forward.
See, I want to talk about Ten Hag a second with his limitations today as well, because obviously,
just before you do that, I just want to bring in Mr. Tom, because I've got a word for him and I want him to run with it. And then I do want to talk about Ten Hag and his limitations, actually, mate. So I'll let you lead with that. Mr. Tom, a word for you: complacency. Yeah, it happens in football all the time. It happens in football all the time, and I've seen it in dressing rooms throughout my years. When you are sitting alongside somebody who's constantly turning out for the side, irrespective of how he's been playing over the last 6 months, because complacency draws in to the very best in the world. How do they drag themselves out? Because I think Bruno's complacent. If I'm being honest with you, that's going on to what Anton was saying. He's not a bad player, and we're not digging Bruno out, but I think he's got complacence. He knows he's going to play football, and I think Maguire did to an extent. I think he'll benefit from coming out the side. So I guess my question is, what would you do if you got somebody in your dressing room that you feel is complacent?
I think I feel like you take them out, because Ralph done it, and I can't remember what game it was. Ralph took Bruno out of the team, and then when he brought him as a sub, he was amazing. I don't know if people remember. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think sometimes that does need to happen, man. I just feel like And I've said it before, and I said it last season. I said Rashford's not a bad player. Bruno's not a bad player. They just suit a certain style of manager or a certain style of playing. They're not bad players. I've said it before. And that's the thing. Bruno needs a lot of freedom, and can't be rigged and restricted and to this system, malarkey stuff. And I love a system. I love managing a system, but I just know the way Bruno plays, he can't be restricted. You can't restrict him to attempt something 10, 20 times, because one time it's going to come off and he's going to get that assist or he's going to get that goal. But it's that complacency is a good point. Maybe he would have got arrested if Eriksen was fit, because Eriksen got the rest in the Europa League game. Bruno might have got. Nobody knows. It's a situation, but the complacency does come into it, man. It's hard right now. It's a tricky one. And I said it to you before. The intensity, another thing I saw today, has dropped off from before the break. That infectious defending, that intensity that I saw, that I fell in love with in that short spell, it's not there no more. I'm not seeing it. Especially that first half today, that performance, I'm not seeing it. That fight, that intensity, I'm not seeing it. It's strange how this is just, the intensity's dropped off. I don't know if it's a mental problem, and that's why personally for me, I didn't want us to lose today, because this team can be mentally fragile, and then going into the next two games being mentally fragile is not a good thing. But I just wanted to mention something. Someone in the comments said Rashford can't play through the middle. Well, didn't he score 2 goals playing through the middle, or 3 goals so far this season, and got an assist? So this come on, and not the extreme sometimes is a bit crazy. Do you know what I mean?
Off the left, isn't it? That's where he scores. He scores off the left.
No, but I'm saying this season he's played through the middle and he scored through the middle.
He scored through the middle.
He's actually been good through the middle. He stretches defenders, and that's That's actually how we created an opportunity today, because he moved the defenders. Don't always watch the ball. Sometimes watch the man without the ball. Sometimes watch the players, what they do without the ball. And he was stretching defenders. That's very important. People watch the ball too much and not watching what people are doing without the ball. Do you know what I mean? That is very, very important in football. And sorry, Dan, just to bring Sancho, I get it, you might want to see him as 10, and a lot of people, but he's not really played a 10. He was a left winger at Manchester City youth level. Went to a right winger because of Roy's, and he's not lacking speed. His top speed is 34.6. Yeah, where someone like Nkuku's at 35.4. Mbappe's got 36. His top speed is not slow. It's just the way he likes to play. That's all it is. He's not
done that speed since he's been at United. He actually
has. He has.
Which game?
Last season, the Chelsea game. If you remember the Chelsea game, last season.
Oh yeah, when Jorginho missed the ball. Yeah.
But this is what I'm trying to say. Trust me, I watched back games 1,000 times to know. It's just the way we're playing. It's coming to a bad side. I think people forget this. We're not a great side, and I've been talking about this with Stu, about controlling games was going to be a problem. The other day I said a lack of conviction, attacking is going to concern me. Brought up to date. It's the same issues I bring up. It's the same issues week in, week out.
You've got to have balls when you step on a football pitch. At any level you play with, you've got to have nuts. You've got to have proper stones, because there are times during a match where you'll make a mistake and you'll be like, oh, fuck, Jesus. And then you've just got to take a deep breath and then play a simple pass. But we don't do any of this. Me and John have spoken about this on occasions. And in fact, Just briefly, Tony, one of the first things I ever said about the women's team was exactly that. The women's team lacked that ability to control a game of football. Now, they're doing better this year by doing it, but we haven't learned. The problem is, the reason why we haven't learned is because the players can't be bothered on occasions. Because nobody can tell me, either in the comments, any of the fans in Manchester United, that our players have got the best interest of the club at heart. Because they haven't, because you will adapt as a footballer. Now, I've left Jarvis's comment up, John, and I'd like you to tackle it, because Jarvis is on point with this. He's absolutely right. Football is about give and take. It is like boxing. If anyone watched the two gals fight it out last night, it was an absolute masterclass in attack and defence. in how to defend at the right time and then suddenly strike. We don't do that. We don't soak the pressure, as Anton says. We won't allow teams to come onto us because we can't soak it up. And then we can't strike like that Viper or that Anaconda and then strangle the game. So just take that, John. And then, Dan, I want to move on to your subject about Ten Hag. I'd like you to lead off, please.
That's fine.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with Jarvis's comments. And I just think it's just, I mean, obviously we didn't concede today. Obviously, that's one of the good things about the game. But it's been shown the past year or so, whenever we go a goal down, it's like we don't know how to respond to it. And one of the problems today is unless we get an early goal in the game or something, we don't know how to respond to it. If we scored the first goal in the game, we tend to get confidence from that and we're capable of scoring 2, 3, maybe even 4. But when we're up against a low block and find it difficult, we rush things. And it's not that element of control. Sometimes you got to, if you're playing against low block, the crucial thing is to play it quickly, but also to ensure that you're in control. You got to try and pull defenders out of position and that kind of thing. And if you keep passing it around, but it's not just about, just playing it on the back and that. It's about trying to get players out of position. And there's also the lack of movement from our forwards and that. If you're playing against low block, who's making a run to get in behind them? That kind of thing, time you run. And like you mentioned, there's just that lack of intelligence with some of our players, like in terms of, I mentioned a moment ago about who's taking the game by the scruff of the neck, say, I'm going to win this game, I'm going to do something different. When you're playing against a low block, it's easy to defend until one of your players does something which they're not expecting you to do. And then when you do that, that pulls players out of position, that allows you to create a chance. And for me, that's one thing that we're lacking from our team. It's the players, whether it be a player like Sancho or Rashford, or I know it wasn't Wednesday, Martial or whoever, you've got to have that ability that intelligence to think, right, how are we going to break this down? It's not good enough to just say, oh, it's hard to break down. We can't do anything. We might get a chance at the end like we did today. But you've got to, if you're going to create a chance and score a goal, you've got to make it happen. And this is one thing I feel Ten Hag, and obviously Dan will have his point, this is what Ten Hag will look to. And it's been a problem for us under successive managers, under not exactly the same group of players, but there are certainly players who have been involved in that kind of thing. And I think there's that, we mentioned about Bruno and even Rashford, they were capable of doing it a year or two ago. But have they become part of the problem in terms of the whole feeling around the club, the team, that now they're potentially incapable of doing it? And I think that's the biggest concern. I think that's one thing that needs addressing if we are to progress going forward.
Well, let me just lead Dan in with this segue then, because we have a lot of Mr. Tunnel. Me and Mr. Tunnel talked about this in pre-season. We were talking about, we look great pre-season training, and I made a point, as Mr. Tunnel now verify, that I said you can make a point, you can look good in training, but if you can't transition that onto the pitch, it's an absolute irrelevance. Now look at our small-sided games in training, our 1 or 2 or 3 touch passing. It's basic football. Any club does it. Anyone who plays football on this panel will have worked on 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch, quick passing, bang, 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 bang. That's exactly what it does. And they show us in training. They show us on the YouTube and they go, wow, we look great with our 1 and our 2 touch passing. Why does that not transition into the field of play, Dan? And is that something to do with Ten Hag or?
Well, I personally thought that Ten Hag would actually develop these players to be able to pass better. And I've seen it under McTominay and a lot. Their passing ability has gotten a lot better over the last of the last under the Ten Hag's reign so far. But I feel like the likes of Fred and stuff like it. Obviously, Troy Deeney said that when he was at Watford that they would actually target Fred because he can't do one-touch football. He has to take a few touches before he makes a pass, and you'd think that Ten Hag would drill into Fred about quick passing. And I don't know if Fred bottles under pressure because he's got players around him that are pressing him, or he just can't do it. He just has to take that touch because he's just not confident in himself. He doesn't have the ability to. But like I said, with Ten Hag and his limitations, Fred had a very bad first half today. And he couldn't really take him off at half time because you can't really bring on Zidane Iqbal for 45 minutes because of how much of a risk it is. So even though Fred played horrendously, he had no one to actually bring him on for. And that's the lack of depth that I was talking about.
Yeah. So sorry, Anton, let's bring you in on this, pal. You've been nice and quiet, waiting patiently, mate. So the floor's yours, mate. The floor's yours.
I agree with exactly what Dan just said. And I think it relates back to what I said maybe 10 minutes ago. It all goes back to the people at the top. I saw a tweet saying, I don't know how Ronaldo's come off before Fred. And at the time I was like, yeah, that's true. I don't know how he has. But now that Dan said, we just don't have anybody. We all talk about, oh yeah, Zidane Iqbal, Charlie Savage. On a tour, they were amazing. Like they're going to play first team football this season. But you can't bring them on in a game like this. You can't. It's not fair because you're playing against, Bruno Guimaraes, one of the best players in this position.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You're playing against Longstaff, who's decent. He's a established, I guess, Premier League footballer. You can't really bring on Zidane Iqbal or what's his name? I just said it. Charlie Savage on in a game like this. Ghana would have been good, but of course we don't have him anymore. So I think that I don't think Ten Hag. Well, okay, Ten Hag hasn't got the best out of the players yet. I think the players are still getting to where he wants them to be. It's not going to be a smooth road, and I think some people are a bit mistaken. Obviously, at Ajax, Ten Hag got them to the Champions League final. He won them a couple of league titles. He produced a lot of good players, and I think people thought he would be coming in and we'd instantly be just it. Anthony was the one player we needed. Oh, we lost the first 2 games, but now we have Anthony, so we're not going to lose ever again. I think that's what people expected, but it takes time and it takes a lot of finding out who the players that you actually want to be in the squad are. Look, he might turn around in January. It's not going to happen. We might turn around in January and say, Sancho, look, it's not going to work out. We're going to cash in for you now and get some. That might happen. Those things still need to happen. He's only been here, Ten Hag's only been here since, I think, June. There is a bit of patience that needs to be had, but then again, I can't excuse patience for the stuff that we still have to watch. There's a difference between still learning the style that the manager wants you to play and genuinely not looking like you're going to do anything. You're a professional footballer at the end of the day. If you can't play the style that the manager wants right now, just do something else. Don't just do nothing, which is what we seem to do. It's either the manager's way or we get absolutely turned over, and it's very frustrating. But yeah, we need more depth. I kind of got a bit sidetracked. I was getting a bit annoyed.
I think you made a really good point because football is about that. Football is about an ability to transition, an ability to change your way of playing. Because look, you guys have played 7-a-side, 11-a-side, 9-a-side, 5-a-side. There's a raft of differences in terms of how you play those, each and every one of those games. But the bottom line, things that don't ever change, is when the ball's passed to you, you control it, and then you lay it off, or you run with it, or you drop it back. Those don't change. The characteristics of how quickly you need to do that changes. Okay, depending on what type of game that you're in. So if you're in there, if you are being suffocated like City do, the best bet sometimes is to go to a 4-5-1. Okay, and suffocate them back. And just play havoc with your counter-attacking football, or a 4-4-2 and just shut the wingers down. That's the best way sometimes to defend about it. Go on, Anton. Sorry.
So I think as well with this team, I just remembered as you were speaking, one thing that does get on my nerves, I play football, but I'm not a flair type player. I'm not someone that does a skill every time I get the ball.
Neither am I.
I mean, it's nice to see. It's nice to see Anthony. He did that spin thing today, and that was cool. He got the crowd up. But there was a couple of times where we were on the counter-attack. The first time I saw it was they both were in the second half, actually. Bruno Fernandes had the ball. I want to say Rashford was making a run, or someone was making a run, Rashford or Sancho, and he could have played it through, and if the pass was good enough, they would have been genuinely one-on-one with the keeper, albeit it would have been, pretty much the whole half you have to run, but, it can happen. But instead of passing the ball, Fernandes tried the nutmeg, lost the ball, and that went to rubbish. And then Rashford did exactly the same thing maybe 10 minutes later. And it's those sorts of things. Football is a basic game, very cliche. Everyone says it, but it's true. You get the ball, as you said, you pass it, you move, you get the ball again, you work your way towards the goal, and just don't get tackled or intercepted any passes, basically. But when we try and do these things, we're trying to do the fancy nutmeg. Just pass it. Just keep it simple, because when you lose the ball, when it doesn't come off, you're hated. And I did hate him for about 2 minutes after that, because I want to say it was Rashford, because I know how fast he is, and I was thinking, yeah, we're 1-1 here. So I think it was Rashford. But when Bruno Fernandes did that, I think it just epitomized everything that is wrong with Manchester United. In that split second, he was thinking, yeah, I'm Bruno. I'm going to get this nutmeg and then play the incredibly difficult pass that might come off. And I think that's what might have been, I think that's what goes through a lot of our players' heads. The simplicity that Manchester City play. I don't know how to word it properly. Manchester City football is very effective because it's so simple. You don't get any of their players doing a million skills, a million nutmegs. They do the incredibly hard passes, but they have De Bruyne, they have Foden, they have Bernardo Silva. That's bread and butter for them. Our players aren't there just yet, so we just need to keep it as simple as possible, because when we keep it simple, we pass it quickly. That's when we score the goals. Don't know who said it again, but we don't create the Haaland goals that he scores when he's just tapping it into the box. Tapping it into the goal from inside the box. We never ever score any of those goals. We score worldies. If your team is only scoring worldies, it's nice to see.
Based on moments.
It's not good.
Yeah, football isn't about moments. You make a great point, actually, Anton, about round the worlds and nutmegs and all this. When Iqbal did his round the world against Brisbane, and he was replayed and it was all over Twitter. We did a show that night, and I said it's all well and good, but as soon as I got him in the change room, I'd have bollocked him. I'd have made it very, very clear you do not do that when you represent Manchester United, unless we're 3, 4, 5-0 up. You just don't do that, because you're going to get into a stage where you're going to get done. I got a bit of vilification for it. I was told off a few times on Twitter. You don't know what you're talking about. You shouldn't do this, but that's bullshit. You're in the professional game. You come into my changing room and you are doing that when the game's 0-0. I'm going to let you know about it. I'm going to let you know about it on the pitch. I'm going to let you know about it in the changing room, because that's how you win. Winners win and losers lose. Mr. Ton, I've left this.
Sorry, Stu. Can I just jump in a second? I just wanted to reply to what Anton said about how he said about City creating the chances for Haaland.
Yeah.
And we've got none of us have mentioned in this stream either, Ronaldo. About how I still think if you put, Haaland he's great at the moment. He's obviously one of the world's best strikers. But I honestly think if you put Ronaldo, Harry Kane, pretty much any actual striker who's dominant in the air, physically strong, you put him in that City side, he is just as good as Haaland in that City side. So for me, I feel like Ronaldo, he's just in the graveyard shift. He doesn't get enough support whatsoever. And the fact he was took off today was an absolute disgrace. You know that in the last 20 minutes, Ronaldo's going to be coming. You're going to have loads of crosses into the box, and you take off Ronaldo. It just makes no sense why Ten Hag actually took off Ronaldo and brought him on for Rashford, when you know that you're going to have so many crosses coming into the ball, and Newcastle are defending for their life, because they didn't trouble us at all in that second half. They were just very deep, and they just defended for their lives and tried hitting us on the break. But that's just the way I saw it.
I think we have a match on Wednesday.
We play Spurs at home Wednesday.
I think that might have been the reason why I took him off. I didn't realise that match.
You've also got to remember Ronaldo played full 90 on Thursday.
Yeah,
and you can't as much love Ronaldo to keep him on and all that. No, he's not capable of playing 90 minutes, 4 games in 9 days, unfortunately, because Or if he keeps on, he gets injured, which happened last season. This is what I mean. You can't just. Yes, of course. Ideally,
he's too static. He's too static.
But you get Ronaldo on Thursday. McTominay scored the winner. And there's no guarantee he would have got the winner today either. So as much as in the ideal world you like to, you can't be so dependent on a 37-year-old as good as what Ronaldo is.
Yeah, true. Well, guys, we've reached the hour mark, so I want to wrap it up on this question because I think it's a really good question. Actually, it's a poignant one. So, Mr. Ton, I'd like you to tackle this, and then each of you say, and then we'll call it a night. Mr. Ton, go ahead.
Yeah.
Question that's there.
Yeah.
I
think it's a really good question.
Yes or no. I would say it depends really. It depends on the fan base, on the players. There's a lot of factors these days that goes into how long a manager stays really. I don't feel like managers have much time. It's a result business. They don't have much time to build really that much. Not like I would say the only manager I've seen in recent time that's had time to build is Arteta really. I don't see another manager getting that sort of time, and especially finishing out top 4. Like if Ten Hag went 2 seasons not finishing top 4, do you know what I mean? I don't think he would have much time. I don't even think 1 season finish at the top 4 the fans would be happy. So let alone 2. I don't think managers. It's a weird one. How long do managers get these days? Summer season. Do you know what I mean? It's that even Barcelona fans. There's some Barcelona fans already saying that they want Xavi gone. Do you get what I mean? He's only been there for half a season last year and a couple of games this year. So managers don't get time. It's a result business now. Yes, managers should be afforded the time to get their players. But I feel like at Man United, every manager, probably except Van Gaal, Jose and Oli, both had a lot of time. They both got a lot of players. I feel like both of them had an equal enough opportunity. If you actually calculate how many players Oli brought in, it was a whole starting 11. He just didn't do it properly. But managers, I feel like at Man United have had time. Actually, barring David Moyes and LBG, the last 2 have had time. So I'm pretty sure the fan base will give this manager time. But I don't see an issue with it. I generally don't see. I don't think it's changed too much. I just reckon it's changed from how long managers used to get. I just feel like now they have a shorter window. And it's a result business. That's all I feel like. It's just a shorter window.
No, I'd agree. Anton, what are your thoughts on that?
Mr. Ton, you brought up Arsenal, which is what I wanted to say. I think the fact Arsenal have given Arteta the 3 years, he finished eighth twice in a row, I think, and then last season, I can't remember, it was fourth or it wasn't fourth, sorry, it was fifth, I think.
Yeah. Fifth.
I think with all of the other teams sitting back and watching what can actually come of giving your manager time to implement the style and then eventually figure out who the perfect players are, they're leading the Premier League. They are, I would say it's their time to lose. They have the points on the board. They're top by a bit of a distance. I think because of what Arteta's done, it might give other clubs a bit more of a reason to think, okay, if we give, if Ten Hag gets 5th or 6th this season, it might not be a case of no Champions League, let's get him out. It might be a case of, okay, he's building something. We've signed a couple of players for him. We can see the way that we're trying to play. We're going to give him another year and a half. Then if he improves by 1 spot or 2 spots, their decision has been justified. If then, however, he does even worse, cool, get rid of him. But I think, especially with the big teams as well, because of how good we were not even that long ago, I think we want to get back to that instantly. We want to obviously we want to be playing Champions League football, but I think some people are just still living back in that time where we had Sir Alex Ferguson, where we had the constant, we know we weren't going to finish below 3rd because he never did. We know we were going to be in the deep stages of the Champions League. We know we were going to be playing finals every single season. We want to get back to that yesterday, but we can't. And people don't understand that a manager has to come in and have time to change stuff, to even inside the club, the stuff that we don't know about. Stuff like that goes on. That stuff gets changed. Managers need time to do all of that, implement their style. And I think now a lot of clubs don't give their managers a lot of time because everything instant money comes into it. TV rights. If you don't play in Europa League, if you don't play in Europe Champions League, you don't get enough money. All of that stuff comes into it, and football is very, very financial now. So, yeah, I can't even remember the question, but yeah, I do think football has changed. I do think it should go back. I can't remember the exact.
No, your Arteta point kind of answered it really, because that's something I already referenced.
Trust the process, pretty much.
Yeah, Dan, John, which
go, John.
Oh, thank you. I think there's less patience with managers these days, but ultimately, even in this modern era, it still comes down to how much you back your manager and how much you back him to turn things around for you. Example, Arteta is crucial. Arsenal said no. We've had all those years with Wenger. We picked Emery. It wasn't quite right for them. And they said to Arteta, no, you're special. We think you're going to be the one to turn things around for us. Yes, they've had a couple of bad seasons and that into that where they finished and all that, but we still going to back you because we think you can turn it around. And even, our local neighbours, Klopp, it took him a couple of years to really get the Liverpool team he wanted to challenge and that. Even Pep Guardiola at City, he took a year to get it right at City. And this is what I mean. It comes down to how much you back that manager to turn things around for you. I'm hoping that even if we don't get Champions League next season, that the club aren't stupid enough to sack Ten Hag, because these things, it does take time to get back, and you will have blips in the road, as it were. I personally think this season it might be a case of 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing, during the games. Like we're drawn to, I mentioned on the show a week or two ago, this season we'll drop points in games you'd expect us to win, but then we'll go to a team which you don't expect us to win and we'll go there and win. For example, it might be that we've drawn today, which we knew it'd be a tough game, but you probably think we should win. We might face Tottenham and Chelsea this way and win both games. I can see us as a team doing something like that this season. I just think it all comes down to how much you back that manager, turn things around, and in the short term, you're willing to sacrifice, a few things and all, but you're still going to back them nonetheless, and that's obviously a decision the club will have to make. So, yeah, it all comes down to that, I feel.
Sure. And final word with you, Dan?
Yeah. I just think that Ten Hag just needs to be backed. I mean, I think that every one of us as fans actually wanted him as the manager, because otherwise, if it wasn't for the fans' voice, it would have been Pochettino as our manager. And it wasn't until the fans had an outburst and saying we want Ten Hag is when the club actually went for Ten Hag. So technically, he's the fans' manager. He's our man. So obviously, 90% of the fans will back him. I've not seen anyone say Ten Hag out yet, because it's still his first season. He's still adapting his philosophy into these players. So I say give him time. I just don't understand why United give the managers such big contracts, like 5 years or so, because if they're planning on sacking him after 2 years, if things don't go right, then why sign him such a big contract? So for me, I still say trust the process with Ten Hag. It's his first season. This is our 11th game now in the Premier League. So I think he's got plenty of time. If we don't come top 4, if we do come top 4, it doesn't matter. I personally wanted him to just pretty much put his philosophy into this squad, get the players he wants to get in, and start the Ten Hag era this season. This was just a stepping stone, in my opinion. I'm not expecting challenging for top 4 for another 2 seasons yet. Just let Ten Hag do his thing, get the players he wants in, because I've said on this channel before that when Ten Hag came in, it was like loads of jigsaws all mixed up from different eras of managers and different styles of players. So for me, Ten Hag has just come in. He's trying to build a full puzzle with different pieces from different other puzzles, and he's just trying to do the best he can with what he's got. So I think it'll take at least 2 or 3 seasons for Ten Hag to get the Ten Hag puzzle, as I'm going to put it. And that's how United will probably start their proper rebuild and hopefully get back on top.
Excellent. Guys, we're going to wrap it up there. once again, a top panel of Reds. We always talk about, footballers, needing to be clinicians, clinical in what they do, clinical on how they approach matches, clinical how they adapt during games. You've just listened to 4 people who've clinically analysed Manchester United. Absolutely superb stuff, guys. Really, really great stuff. Guys, just we'll take your rounds. Give everyone your social media, if you don't mind, where they can find you. Dan?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm Dan_Caulfield, MU in capitals. That's my Twitter. And I also have a YouTube channel called Red Devils TV where I post daily content about Manchester United.
Drop Dan a follow, guys, and subscribe on his YouTube, please. Anton?
My @ is Anton Brooks Embry. It's pretty simple. I'm on here. I also do other stuff, MUFC, MPB. Haven't done that for a while because the transfer window is shut, but I will be active soon. I also play games, so if you're interested in that, give me a follow.
Yeah, follow Anton on all his platforms. Show him the love. Mr. Tom?
As usual, catch me on Spaces on a daily basis, especially this week, probably before the Wednesday game, breaking down the last game, breaking down the next game coming up. Do you know what I mean? It's just usual. Catch me on All For United as well every week.
Absolutely.
Same stuff.
Yeah, and John?
You can find me at John_Kermo2 on Twitter.
And where else can we find you, John?
You can find me I'm on the women's channel as well. We did put a match day vlog up, and I should speak positively. We made Brighton 4-0 today, which we'll have on the BBC, and we've had the perfect start, 3 wins from 3 games, scored 10 goals, none conceded, and early days, but we're top of the league. So it's been a good start.
Yeah, go support the women's channel as well. All For United women's channel. Go support that.
Yeah, we've got, I'm sure we'll have a match review tomorrow, and it was a very entertaining game today, but I recommend you follow the women's team if you can and that, so do please follow the channel if you're willing to, so yeah.
No, absolutely. Get like and subscribe. If you're an AFU fan for the men's channel, make sure an FU fan for the women's channel. Get like and subscribe. You can see myself at Stu Woolley. And I'm a regular on a Wednesday and a stand-in host on a Sunday. And myself and Abdel will be getting together probably next week, and we will be doing another couple of tactical specials. We'll be able to do. You'll be able to follow us actually through the World Cup as well. Just before I go, just a very, very quick reminder that it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's a big thing for all of us here at AFU. It's a big thing for everybody, nationally and globally. So if you do know anyone that's suffering with it, or you've got a friend, family member, put your arm around them. Make sure you donate to this wonderful, wonderful cause. So from everyone here at AFU, I want to thank my guests again, because as usual, they've been absolutely top draw. Make my life very, very easy on a Sunday. So thank you very much for that, guys. And keep it pink if you don't mind. Thank you again. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.